Good morning. It's so good to have everyone here. We are very, very honored this morning to have a special guest that has to be out of here, so we need to start. As people come in, I'm sure they're going to find their seats up here in the front. It is a delight to have you with us. My name is Regina Glenn. I am the Diversity and Inclusion Manager for the SRF 520 program, also the owner of Pacific Communications. We have a full day, as you can see, but today is not only a special day for us that we have, and listen to this. This is a very special moment that our former governor, Christine Gregoire, on her birthday, is with us today. Yeah, hey. She is the mother of two daughters, outstanding in their own careers, one working with the Port of Seattle as a commissioner, the other working King County Prosecutor's Office. She's the first female Attorney General for the state of Washington, and only the second female governor after Dixie Lee Ray. She was the head of the Department of Ecology, so science has always been part of her life too. And she's also the 22nd governor of the state of Washington. We are so proud to have her here. Come join us, if you will, Governor Gregoire.
Well, good morning, everyone. Don't ask me how old I am, okay? It's great to be here with you. I am very excited for this day and excited for you and excited for the future of the great state of Washington with folks like you interested in what we think is the future of our great state in science, technology, engineering, and math. We're joined today by a couple of people I want to recognize. The University of Washington's College of Engineering and its Associate Dean, Eve Riskin. Where are you, Eve? There you are, right there. Public Health of Seattle and King County, its Director of Environmental Sciences, Ngozi Oloru. And the Washington State Department of Transportation and the Administrator for State Route 520, the construction program, i.e., the largest floating bridge in America, left to this fabulous, wonderful engineer, Julie Meredith. Congratulations, Julie. I want to also say thanks to the you students that are here who've taken the day to try and help out and make this really successful, despite the fact they're on spring break. But most of all, I want to thank you because, you know, you could be back home in class. And I know you really, really, really would rather be doing that. So it's nice to have you having taken the day to come here. I know you're glad to be here. It's nice to see you here, nice to see of your interest, and I think you're going to have a fabulous day. Now, let me be clear about what I think the day has in store for you. You've come here today, you've been chosen to come here today because you've expressed or have shown some abilities that suggest science, technology, and engineering and math might be a part of your future. I think that's fabulous, first and foremost. The fact of the matter is, these are subjects that are the future of this state, this nation, and the world. I work with 17 CEOs right now, and these CEOs are the largest international companies we have in Washington State, from Boeing and Microsoft to Amazon and Starbucks and Costco and so on and so forth. At a recent dinner, one of them said, we in the state of Washington are 2 universities short of what we need in the STEM fields. So if you wonder whether there's a job at the end of the path, the answer is absolutely yes. It's one of the highest demand areas that we have here in the state of Washington. I thought I would give you a little bit of background, and it's not as if I think it says anything other than I hope you can get from my background that you have anything and everything you want to do in your future, but don't assume that today you need to decide, because it can be a long and winding trail in coming up with what you're going to be in the future. I was raised in Auburn, Washington, by a single mom who was a short order cook. Very humble beginnings. And so college, of course, I'm an only child, but do not paint me with that picture, by the way. College was very important to me. Why was it important? Because my mom, through all that she had done, said there were 3 lessons in life she wanted me to live by. 3 most important things in my life were education, education, education. And so it was that I felt it was important for me to be a part of the education in the state of Washington. And so as I would sit on the stool at the Rainbow Cafe in Auburn, Washington, and watch my mom work, I always dreamed about what I wanted to do. And I would go down to the corner drugstore and help out by sweeping the drugstore and so on by the druggist who was there, and he inspired me to go to pharmacy school. So I came to the University of Washington with that in mind. I decided that probably wasn't my thing. And so I took a little detour and I got a teaching certificate. And I left here, and it was at that point in time in the history of our state that suddenly, while there had been this huge demand for teachers when I entered undergraduate school, by the time I left, there were no jobs. So needing a job, I became a clerk typist 2 for what was then the Adult Department of Corrections in the central area of Seattle, where I probably learned more than I can ever impart to you about life, experience, what's important. And again, I told every one of those folks that came through the door that were on probation or on parole, you gotta get an education to get out of the spot you find yourself in. The fact of the matter is, I went on from there. I became a social worker with the Department of Social and Health Services, where I did child abuse and neglect cases. And then I had a calling, I had always had a calling by President John F. Kennedy to serve in public. And so I decided the real way I could make an impact was to go to law school. So I went to Gonzaga Law School, graduated, and started working in the Attorney General's office. Now I want to detour for just a brief moment, because I am both a husky and a bulldog, and both are playing. Both are playing in the finals. The husky women have made it to the Sweet 16. They're going to go against Kentucky, and they're going to knock their socks off. And since the dogs are not in the March Madness, then I'm asking you to root for Gonzaga, because they're going to go up against Syracuse tomorrow night. So just a little side thing, but let's get those 2 teams to advance. Eventually, working through the Attorney General's office, I did what was unfathomable at the time. I decided I'd run for Attorney General, never having run for statewide office before. And lo and behold, I was fortunate enough to be elected by the people of the state of Washington. I served in that capacity as our Attorney General for 3 terms. During that, just to show you how much of an impact one can have, I led all 50 states in the settlement of a lawsuit against the tobacco companies. Now, I wouldn't expect you to remember that, but here's what you do need to remember. It was then, and is to this day, the largest financial settlement in the history of the world. And you may ask, am I proud of that? The money means nothing. What was important was the ability to say we were going to save lives, because my mother passed away from a tobacco-related illness. After 3 terms as Attorney General, I ran for governor, and I was fortunate enough to get elected. It was an interesting election. It made history in the country. It was the closest election for governor anywhere in the country in history. 128 votes originally, eventually after a lawsuit, 133 votes. That is not how you want to be elected, by the way. But I served 2 terms as governor. Now, why do I share this story with you? Because I started out in Auburn, Washington with little prospect of being able to go to college. Then when I was determined, because of my mom, I wanted to be a pharmacist. From there, I was to be a teacher. From there, a clerk typist, to a social worker, to an attorney, to Attorney General, to governor. Now, did I ever anticipate any of that when I was your age? Absolutely none of it. Would anybody have ever convinced me that that was the future of my life? No. So while you need to dream big, and you can't let anything get in your way, you also can't sit here today and with precision make a decision and say, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So I want you to know there isn't anything you can't do. The fact of the matter is, I'm told that your teachers say that you're hardworking or you wouldn't be here, that you do what you need to do or you wouldn't be here, and you've got the potential to do anything you want to do or you wouldn't be here. Where do you want to wind up? I didn't know when I was your age. You're here because you're thinking about it. I give you immense credit for that. Where do you want to wind up? You don't have to have the answer yet, as I've indicated, but you do need to start thinking about it in my mind, and you're here because that's exactly what you're doing. But let me talk about STEM degrees, because I've told you what the CEOs of this state say, and they know 2 universities short of what the need's going to be. There are unfilled jobs in STEM today, and the prospects of tomorrow are much greater than that. The job growth in STEM will outpace any other of the areas in which anybody's going to get a degree. Now, I don't want to suggest that we don't need other professions. Make no mistake about it. But if you really want to look to something that's exciting, something you could never anticipated, that you would be put in charge of the largest floating bridge in the United States, think about the opportunities that are there before you and the jobs that are clearly there. Education, when I was governor, was a top priority for me. You can't live in the state of Washington and not say, as governor, education is important. And I knew it was extremely important that we look to those who are in high school today to get them to ask and answer the question, why not me, and why not a STEM field? I am also the vice chair of the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. I want you to know that all that we've accomplished in research in curing cancer over the last 50 years will be outpaced by what we're going to do in the next 10. We now have found that with some cancers, people who are completely gone through every treatment and there's nothing more for them and they are terminally ill, we have a new immunotherapeutic way to work with them with a 93% success rate. And I don't mean remission, I mean cure. These are things over the last 50 years we could never have imagined. And it's happening right here in our own backyard at the Hutch in Washington State. As we led in transplantation, stem cell transplantation, we're going to lead in the cure for cancer. Take a look around at what else is going on here. The fact of the matter is we lead when it comes to cloud computing. We lead when it comes to gaming. We lead in so many areas because we are an innovative state, we are technology driven, and we have CEOs who are willing to take risks, and I can assure you they're willing to look for you and hire you. One of the things they've asked me to do is go into high schools and make sure that those students know they want to hire kids from Washington State. They want to hire people who graduate from high school here and go on and get a certification or a degree. They want to hire in Washington State. That is their #1 priority. So when you've got CEOs that willing, when you've got higher education that willing, when you've got you that willing, I have no doubt in my mind the success that you will have as you embark on a STEM field. One of the things that we're doing is we're leading in transportation. We know that the 520 is the single largest floating bridge in the US. What's going on down at the viaduct and tearing it down and building the deep bore tunnel, that deep bore tunnel is to be the largest deep bore transportation tunnel in the world, So sitting in your own backyard are those who are willing to think bold, think big, take risks, and do things that no one else is able, willing to do. And that's why it's so exciting for you to be interested and for you to be here today. As I work with these 17 CEOs, we just released a transportation document about the future. These are 17 CEOs that couldn't build a highway if their life depended on it. They couldn't build that 520 bridge for anything, but they have something for transportation that no one else has. They have technology and they have innovation. And so they're going to create I-5, abutting Seattle, out of being the most congested downtown city street, back to being a freeway, because they're going to make it a smart corridor. We're getting ready at the University of Washington to launch a Mobility Innovation Center, first of its kind. We're talking about Hyperloop, where the students here at the UW are now competing with kids all across the United States. We're talking about robots that have sensors and have the ability to tell us what's it going to be like to have autonomous vehicles in downtown Seattle, and these students are competing internationally on that. We know the future is in technology innovation, and with that, the idea that we can partner with those in engineering, those in math, those in science, there's where the future of our state, our country, and our world really is. So I ask you to start thinking about what your future is and how exciting it can be. From getting involved in the Hyperloop, the fifth way to travel, getting involved in an autonomous vehicle and how we're going to make it happen first here in our great state. Challenge Seattle, the group that I work with, are saying we want to be bold, we want to be first, we want to think big, we want to take risks, and we want to hire locally. Therefore, we want our students to get the education they need, they deserve to fill these jobs. So, have a great day. I couldn't be more proud that you are here. I'm excited for each and every one of you. I also want to invite you, please, on April 2nd, when the 520 Bridge has its grand opening, go out there, get involved in the marathon, just take a walk across the thing, see what it means and the dramatic difference 50 years makes from its predecessor that we use now, where we shut down every time there's a big wind, where we shut down every time there's routine maintenance, where we shut down because we just think we ought to shut down, to a brand new ridge that won't shut down, that will be there reliably for those who need to travel on it every single day, and realize that when we built it with the capacity to grow in the future, if that's what we need. It is one of the most fantastic engineering feats in the country, and it was done right here in our own backyard. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your interest. We need you in the STEM fields. I look forward to seeing you in your future and making it possible for us in this great state to continue to lead. Thank you.
Wow, what a kickoff. Thank you, Governor, sharing your time with us. Be bold. So today, you have in front of you your programs. We have 3 more hours to push in a lot of information. Basically, you'll have upcoming remarks from some outstanding professionals, and then you'll have this exciting panel where 3 actual practitioners, working engineers, will tell you what their background was about. And then you'll have an opportunity to talk to students who are currently at the University of Washington, what it's like to be a student, to give you some ideas of what the transition will be. And just before we start, would you give me a show of hands? How many here are seniors? Look at you, ready to come on forth and do it. And then the rest, juniors? Great. Sophomores? Okay. Any freshmen? Yes, we got everyone represented. Thank you so much. The next remarks, we would like to ask if Eve would join us.
Good morning. I'm really thrilled to see so many of you here today at the University of Washington. I am Eve Riskin. I'm a professor of electrical engineering, and I am Associate Dean of Diversity and Access. Why is diversity and access even a topic in engineering? It's because research shows that the best solutions come when teams that are diverse work together. So engineering, you probably realize, is mostly males, a lot of white males. But we have examples where if you have just teams of one group of people designing a product, it may not work well. I think a really classic example is the airbag. What happened with the airbag? When you put children and smaller women in front of airbags, some of them got killed because it was designed for large men. So I like to say, I'm like 5'3" on a good day. If I had been on that design team, perhaps I might have volunteered for a trial run. And it might not have worked out so well for me. I might have taken one for the team, but then they could have redesigned the airbag before it was released to the public. So I feel very strongly that we need to get more diverse people into our College of Engineering. We need more women, we need more underrepresented minorities, we need people from low-income backgrounds, first-generation students like the governor, people with disabilities, because we're designing products for everybody to use, not just for one group. So a word from our sponsor, we hope that those seniors are thinking of coming to the University of Washington next year. I'm looking at somebody repping Wazoo. We like them too. They have a good College of Engineering, but I would love to see many of you coming here this fall and next fall. We have great support for people in their academics and their community. We want to see you get your degree and succeed and then go access one of the wonderful engineering careers in Washington. So enjoy your morning and go Huskies. Thanks.
I hope you also take a time as our speakers come up to take a gander at the information we share about their background, the different organizations they joined. Our next welcoming comments will come forth, if you will, give you a chance to come, Ngozi. And she brings not only a greeting, but she represents the history of how we are here looking at social justice and equity in the field.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ngozi Oleru. I am the Director of Environmental Health for Public Health in Seattle and King County. And more importantly, the parent of a junior from Cleveland High School. Go Eagles! I'm really excited. We're really excited. I have my colleague who actually made all this happen, Greg Wilson, who's worked with all the schools to put this together, and my other colleague, Daryl Rogers, in the audience. We're excited to be here because this is one of the workforce development efforts we have at the county. We want to expose all students to STEM careers. In the county, our current county executive, Doc Constantine, has 3 priorities. One, for his current term, one is the best run government, climate change, and equity and social justice. And the story of this bridge and the project that we are doing is very connected to all of those 3 priorities. To have a best run government, you have to have a competent, diverse, and inclusive workforce. Can't run a good government without that makeup. And so we do this workforce development projects to graduate you so you can come and take over from us. We need engineers, we need health professionals, we need technology. It's the way that you run a good government now. Climate change. Well, you gotta have good infrastructure to withstand the effects of climate change, a la the 520 bridge. So we don't have to shut it down when there is a windstorm. So you being here, you being interested in STEM is contributing to that priority. And then equity and social justice. The county launched an initiative in 2008 on equity and social justice, and 2 years later, it was unanimously passed as a law in King County that we do everything we do, that best run government, that priority on climate change, we do it from a lens of equity and social justice. What does that mean? It means that we want everyone to be able to attain their full potential. And so we need to open up STEM careers to everyone, and most especially to you, children of color, youth of color, to be interested and successful in this area. So, again, welcome, and we're happy to have you. I'm welcoming you on behalf of King County, and to tell you that we're really proud of the partnership we have with the University of Washington and all the other universities here in the state, and all of the high schools that we're working with to continue this project. Have a great day. Thank you.
So now we have an opportunity to hear from Julie. Julie will talk about our wonderful project and what we have information on. Her slide will come up momentarily, and she'll tell you her pathway to being the administrator for the world's longest floating bridge. Julie.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to be here. I am an alum of the University of Washington. Although I went to Western too, I took a journey. So I'm going to talk today just a little bit this morning about the SR 520 program. I've been on this program for many years. Governor Gregoire, through both of her terms, I've worked on this program. So I'm going to look for the guy who's running the slides. Oh, there he is. Okay. I'll look at you, Ethan. All right, so let's talk about the 520 program. They gave me a little thing here. The 520 program is on Lake Washington. So if you look on the left, you can see there's Grace Harbor. That's important because we built major portions of the structure there. And 520 here by Seattle. So if you look on the right, you can see here's Lake Washington, I-5 on the west side, I-405 on the east side. 520 is one of two of the crossings of Lake Washington. And the thing that I want you to note about the water on this map is it all runs north-south, which is important when you think about why a 520, why did we build a floating structure? So just keep in your mind that north-south waterway. Okay, next slide. So why did we want to replace 520? As a professional engineer, public safety is first and foremost in our minds. While we like to build really big, great projects, because as you'll hear, that's probably why many of us got into engineering in the first place, public safety is our first priority. So as you can see on the left, that's a windstorm that's battering 520 and has been battering that structure for over 50 years. And I'd like to say that the engineers in the 1950s that designed this structure, they were fantastic. They used the tools and the knowledge they had at the time, but we've learned a lot since 1950s about the marine environment that our structure was going to be exposed to. And at this point, we felt after 50 years of battering, it had lived its useful life, and we needed to replace it. Also in the 50s, you know, they have fads in engineering just like they do in fashion. And the fad in engineering at that time that we built this structure was to save money, and to do that, they built these hollow columns on the approaches to 520. Here's what one looks like. You can see there's a little reinforcing steel on the outside. Also, these columns, which we would embed in really competent soil, they're kind of like a table just sitting on the top of the lake bottom. So today's standards, it doesn't meet earthquake standards, and this is what happens when a barge ran into one of those columns. So we need to replace them for the vulnerability to earthquakes. So next slide. You may laugh at this slide, but 10 years ago, the Department of Transportation made a YouTube video, that new thing that we thought of, that you all grew up with. We thought it was exciting. So we created this video to demonstrate what would happen if there was a windstorm large enough to cause a problem on the 520 structure. Now, I'd like to say that this windstorm, we just imagined it, but we actually did have a windstorm that did damage the I-90 structure when we were retrofitting it. So we kind of had some experience with what would happen. So here's what we did. And I will say waves are hard. So if you are out there know how to do YouTube videos, this was new to us. So the stresses really happen on the short anchor cables, which are holding the bridge in place. So what would happen is the stresses on those cables would overcome the strength of the cables, the pontoons would break up and float away. Some may sink. So anyway, that video was groundbreaking for us at the time. But it did demonstrate, at least to the public, what could happen. And one of the things we thought about is we needed to replace the structure and demonstrate really to the public how long and how hard it would be to replace it. All right. So again, remember I talked about those waterways being north-south? Most of the waterways in the Puget Sound area going up to Canada are actually running north-south because that's how the glaciers left it. So the glaciers came through and gouged out this very deep gorge that then filled in with what we say is some very soft silt and soft lake sediments. We call them incompetent. So you really can't put a foundation on those sediments. Your foundation is gonna have to be down here in order to support it. That would be 200 feet of water and about 200 feet, and you haven't even built out of the lake yet. So why does Washington State have 4 of the longest, largest floating bridges in the world? Because we have the geology that makes it so that a floating bridge is economical. All right. So, where were the 520 pontoons built? One of the things that happens over time is that land use practices change. And so the areas where we built the I-90 floating pontoons and the Hood Canal pontoons, those land uses had changed to other things. So we needed to look at and build a casting facility. We looked across all the sites in Washington State. We even looked at some in Canada. We looked at some in Portland. We actually built them in Grays Harbor. 33 of the 77 pontoons to float the bridge were built in Grays Harbor. Actually, the site is still out there. This is the Hoquiam Band performing, and since I was in the marching band, that's the photo we chose. So here's the site in Aberdeen. These are some of the first cycle pontoons that were building there. We built 6 in every cycle except for the last cycle. And then when we finished last March, we finished building, and this is Aberdeen's marching band helping us celebrate the end of the work we did out there. So that was wonderful. We still needed to build more pontoons, so we built 44 of the smaller pontoons, the supplemental pontoons down in Tacoma. And there was a facility down there that could accommodate construction of these with a little supplemental buoyancy, but the largest ones needed a site to be built at that didn't exist when we started. All right. So here is a video. And this video shows what happens when you try to move 6 pontoons out. Third cycle. I think we chose this one because this was one of the driest floatouts we had. All right. So they actually let water into the casting facility. Here's the river, here's the basin, They let the water float in on the basin side, they pull the gate, and then the tugs come in and pull out each of the pontoons in a certain order, depending on the size and the height of the tide, because we had to go out on a high tide. Then the gate goes back in. They get the water down to a lower level, and then there are fish trapped on the upside in the casting facility, and that's when we work with the fish biologists and the tribes to make sure we can do capture the fish, get them back onto the riverside. We did that journey 6 times in Aberdeen. I tell you, most of the time it rained sideways while we were doing it. But. So after we built the pontoons, the ones that we constructed in Grace Harbor took an open tow, 250 or so nautical miles, and we came through the locks here and onto Lake Washington. And that's important because the locks are a limiting factor. The locks are about 80 feet wide, so you can't build a pontoon wider than the locks. I stood there many times watching our pontoons where the public said, "Do you think they actually designed them to fit through here? What if they don't fit?" So I did laugh at that. They did fit. So here's some of them coming through the ship canal. And the 44, the smaller pontoons, were actually constructed down here, floated up on the Sound, and then in through the locks. So you can see here's some of the work we're doing with the barge crane. That barge crane had to actually fit through the locks. So not only did our design have to take into account the physical limitations, but so did the construction practices that the contractor had to implement. And here is a shot of the new 520 floating bridge adjacent to the existing 520 floating bridge. All right. We also had a project on the east side. We called it the East Side Transit and HOV project, where we added an HOV lane to the corridor. We reconstructed transit stops and made them compatible for bus rapid transit when that comes to the corridor. Some of the interdisciplinary work we did, we put in new culverts. These culverts were designed in order to accommodate not just water, but the uses of it for fish. So that's one of the major drivers on the east side. Here's some of our lids that we constructed. So here's a new transit facility, park and ride lot here, but also we have a bicycle trail going north-south and a regional bike trail going east-west. And so that is a multimodal hub for us right there. And there's our HOV lanes and the new bicycle trail. All right. So one of the more interesting engineering challenges we had to do was to replace the culverts that ran all the way across 520 on the East Side project. We'd close the corridor down on a Friday night, and then all of this work had to be completed so we could get commutes going on Monday morning. So this is what one looks like in a little fast time. So you're closing it down, you're excavating down, and you have to go down between 35 and 40 feet, build a subgrade to support the culvert once you get down there, place the culvert, this is them excavating all the way to the bottom. Those are some utilities hanging there. So they're building the subgrade, putting the culvert pieces in. Now they're going to have to backfill. The sun's going to come up here soon, so they're getting nervous. So they're backfilling. They're trying to get enough competent fill in there because they still have a lot of work to do before they open to traffic. They're getting the final subgrade in, and pretty soon you'll see the paving machines show up. And now they're going to start the paving, and the sun's going down, and so the stripers are lined up, hoping they still have good weather so they can paint it and stripe it before it's over with. And now we all go to sleep because you guys are driving on the road again. We did that 7 times on the east side. Yep. All right, so the next project we have is, this is the smallest construction project that we did that was sizable, and this is a $200 million design bid build contract, still one of the largest contracts the state has let. And it's constructing a fixed bridge, a bridge with a foundation that hooks the floating bridge to Montlake Boulevard. This is an example of some of the columns. This is a bearing, so the columns are going to sit on this, and this is going to support it in case of an earthquake. And here's some of the columns we're building up out of the ground. This is one of the 353 girders that we have. It's 150 feet long and about 2,000 pounds. 200,000, sorry. So next shot on this one. So what's coming next? Last summer, the legislature passed what we call the Connecting Washington Transportation Package, and they allocated $1.64 billion to complete the remainder of the corridor from, say, Montlake Boulevard, Seattle, to I-5. So this is a visualization of what that would look like. This is Seattle, I-5 this way. Lake Washington is off the screen to the left. This is a new regional north-south connection, Montlake Boulevard. So we have 2 more structures to replace for seismic vulnerability. Portage Bay Bridge is one of them. This is a visualization of Portage Bay Bridge. So that work will go on for the next decade or so until we complete the $1.64 billion program the legislature allocated for us. So the one thing before I close, I'd like to say, I've enjoyed working with not just the engineers on this job. There's highway engineers, there's transportation engineers, structural engineers, marine engineers. There's water quality specialists. We worked with wildlife specialists. We work with people who specialize in just earthquake design. We studied tubes and tunnels nationally and internationally. So there isn't just one small field to work in. It's a wide variety, and we needed them all. And what nobody will tell you is you can't do it without good communications. We worked with many different disciplines across many different lines, and it was our communications team that helped us do that in a good way, both with the public, with the legislature, and actually across disciplines. So don't forget your good communication work as well. So anyway, thank you, and I'll work with the panel.
It's kind of exciting to see that bridge and see what underneath. Now we'll have an opportunity to hear from 3 of our panelists if they will join us on stage. One of the things about, and Julie, you're back with us. No rest for the weary. We wanted to be sure that we brought a cross-section of lives and experiences so that you can feel very empowered to be bold, to move forward. You've been such great listeners. We will have an opportunity after they each give us a brief introduction about themselves and their careers, and then we'll field some questions from you that you might have from any of them. With that, we will start our panel, and Sarata, I believe you're going first. There you go.
Okay. Do I need to grab one of those? Or?
I think you can move forward and grab a mic if you'd like. There's one right there at the foot of you, but that's also, if you're comfortable holding one of those, that's fine too. Shout out to the great artist listening here. You can almost see any.
All right. So the most important point over there is I'm a Husky. And a while ago, but I was here as a student when they won the national championship in '91, and hopefully many, many more come. My name sounds a little funny because I was born and raised in Indonesia. I finished high school over there, and I came here and finished college here at UW. I have been a civil engineer for a little over 20 years. I've been with the same company for about 17 years, and most of my projects have been highway design. So in Seattle, we don't have too many interstates, I-5, I-90, I-405, and I could say that I've been working on all the projects in those interstates. So just a little bit background where I came from. I don't know, probably you took geography, right? So Indonesia is literally on the other side of the world. In terms of time zone, right now they are 15 hours ahead. So right now it's 10 o'clock in the morning, so over there is 1 a.m. And it is by the equator, so we only have one season, hot. So Indonesia is, if you look at the inside here, it's actually a sizable country. It's the fourth most populous country in the world, behind, of course, China, India, US, and then Indonesia. It has 255 million people over there. So the reason I asked our communication team to put up that slide over there, as Governor Gregoire pointed out earlier, for STEM-related career, if you look at those pictures, there are things that we see and sometimes we take it for granted every day, but if you look at cars, planes, dams, so Hoover Dam, tall-rise buildings, and even manufacturing plants, all kind of engineering. There's mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, of course civil engineering, and also behind industrial engineering, and of course behind all that there is all the supply lines that I would imagine all kind of science and technology behind it. So the thing about engineering, as I look back, why I pick engineering is if you walk around, things that are just around us, there are people involved in engineering that is actually behind the design. They have to put some thoughts behind it about how people are going to use it, how to improve it, how to make it better. So that's about engineering. Okay. So as thinking about looking back, talking to high school kids with some of the teachers in the room, probably this is. It will be a little bit funny, but why I picked STEM is when I was growing up trying to study, I found that when I tried to study the social science classes, I had to work a lot harder. I had to work hours trying to memorize all the geography, the history, and all that. But I found myself as looking at math and physics. As long as I get the concept, I turn out that I don't have to work as hard. But maybe some of you could relate, I don't know. Just before I pass it on here to Erin, in closing, what I would like to tell you as when you're still young is, I think Governor Gregoire also pointed out, is dream big. Think about, if you think about 20 years down the road, thinking about how you would be impacting the people that live around you. Think about how you want to live. Don't limit yourself. Think about what passion you could be in doing, and be good at it, be passionate, and get paid doing it.
Thank you so much. My name is Erin Slayton, and it's so funny because as I was preparing to come here today, I was going through some old pictures last week, and I came across a picture of myself in high school here at the UW at a program for high school kids interested in STEM. So I feel like I really have come full circle to be here today, so it's a real honor for me to be here. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, and we moved here. My dad was in the Navy, which is how we came to be in Washington State. And I grew up in Port Orchard, Washington, and that's where I had lived since the age of 5. My parents still have the same house in Port Orchard. And I went to high school in Tacoma, Washington, an all-girls school, Annie Wright School in Tacoma. And it was there that I was inspired by the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that was my inspiration, because to get to high school in Tacoma, I had to cross the Tacoma Narrows Bridge every day. And I went to Stanford University in California, where I got my Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering in 2001. And while I was at Stanford, I actually had the opportunity to travel and spend some time in Japan. I spent 6 months in Japan studying and working. And that's something that I recommend for all of you. If you have the opportunity to travel abroad and spend some time abroad while you're in college, absolutely take the opportunity to do that if you can. Once I got out of college, and actually during college still, I had the opportunity to actually intern on the construction of the new Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which for me was a dream come true, because that was the whole reason that I wanted to become a civil engineer in the first place. So I had an opportunity for 2 summers to work on that Tacoma Narrows Bridge project. And after graduation, I came to Seattle and started working in various civil engineering jobs. I'm also a Husky, having received my master's degree here in civil engineering in 2003, 6-ish, somewhere in there. And then I had the opportunity to work on the 520 program for a wonderful 9 years, and it's really something to work on such a tremendous project, one of the largest projects in the country, and a project that has a lot of respect from folks throughout the world in terms of its significance and the technical expertise required to create such a thing. And now I've recently moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm working on a highway project there. So it's a new experience. It's a little hot for me there, but I'm getting used to that. So this is just a look at my map, where I come from. Again, being born in Charleston, South Carolina, making the trip up to Washington, high school in Tacoma, college in Palo Alto, California, and then currently working in Phoenix. And one of the things I have to say that's really interesting about my map is that, and anybody's map, is that no matter where you go, you find people that you know. You find it's such a small industry that you end up finding connections with people. And that's something that's important to do throughout your career, is to make those connections and keep those connections, because you never know who you're gonna run into. I spent the last year working with a couple of lawyers that I met in my second job here in Seattle. So I've been working with them in Phoenix, and I met them here in Seattle. So it's kind of funny how that all comes full circle. So a lot of people, Suriata was inspired by a lot of the amazing feats that he had seen in engineering, and we heard Julie talk about the amazing things that we've seen in engineering, watching things being constructed, watching things come together. I was inspired to become a civil engineer by a major disaster. So I like to see things fail. That was what was my original inspiration. And so as I mentioned before, in order to get to high school, I had to travel across the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. And at that time, that was the second Tacoma Narrows Bridge. The first bridge was built in 1940 and suffered a catastrophic collapse. In the same year it was built, I think it was only up for about 4 months before the structure collapsed. So it was a major engineering disaster, and we're gonna see some video here. And one of the things that I thought was so cool to learn about, first of all, bridges aren't supposed to do this, but, whoa, yeah, back up a little bit even. We're gonna go to 205. But what was also so fascinating about this bridge is that we learn so much from this structure. And in fact, here at the University of Washington, they built one of the foremost wind tunnels in the world to help study what happened here and help us to learn from this experience so that it wouldn't happen again.
Is that a person?
There's a person on this bridge. And I'm happy to say that the only fatality was the dog that was his dog.
Oh, I thought the dog
Was in
made
the
it.
car, yeah, that car back there. He tried to rescue his dog, but as you can see, it was not safe for him to be on the structure any longer. So we did lose a dog in the crash, but other than that, it's a miracle really that there were no other casualties. But look at this, and so I gotta tell you too, if you have an opportunity, take a look at YouTube, search for some videos of when the bridge actually opened, because the bridge was actually undulating and fluctuating when the bridge opened. And so people were driving over the bridge as it was moving in this wave-like action, and they talk about how you would see the car in front of you disappear. Because you're on the bottom of a hill, there's a hill, and there's another car that's disappeared. Bridges aren't supposed to do that, but people were driving over it for 4 months until it became such a situation that it actually collapsed. So this was my inspiration. When I saw this video when I was in high school, I was captured and I said, wow, I've got to be involved in bridges. This is such a cool thing. So I hope this maybe inspires a couple of you here in the audience today. Check out some more YouTube videos. Galloping Derby is what you're looking for there with Comaneros Bridge. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Julie. Thank you so much.
Well, I have a background and a math that's a lot smaller than these guys. But I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to college. I took a roundabout path to get here to the University of Washington. I went to Western first, really wanted to be a geologist. That just wasn't going to work out for me. So I came down here to the UW, and my goal was really to live out in as far away from a busy city as I could, and as you can tell, that didn't work out for me either. So I have a Bachelor's of Science in Forest Resources, which has, shockingly served me well. I've been working in engineering, I'm going to say 20 years, just like Suryata did, even though I'm sure that's more, but anyway. I started here at the Washington State Department of Transportation, working for I-90 program management. So it's taken me 20 years to get back to I-90, or 520 program management. So I have an opportunity now to work with local jurisdictions, state, federal officials, elected officials from many, many areas, and it's just been one of those dreams that Governor Gregoire talked about her path to get here. Your path will be the same. You won't be able to predict it, and it will be the journey. Just remember, it's all about the journey. So right now, I get to oversee over 200 people, 200 really great professionals. I really enjoyed working with Erin and was sad to see her go. She will come back, and I will work with her again. Suryata's on the team helping us deliver the rest of the West. It's been a dream job for me, so excellent. So this is my life. I grew up in Kent, Washington, with my family down there. My dad still lives in the house that I grew up in. My family, I am the first person to go to college. So that's, anybody in the audience that will be the first person? So both of my folks quit school, and mom got married and dad went off to the military. So they both got a GED because they felt that education was the way to go, and I didn't have a choice, I was going. So then I went up to the university. Actually, I went to Western, but I ended up graduating from here. Now I live as far out as I can and still make it to Seattle. So now I get to lead the 520 program. As you've seen this slide before, it's been one of those things where it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. It's the best of times right now as we get forward to the grand opening. Erin says that she was inspired by an engineering issue that didn't go well, I'll tell you, you learn more from the engineering issues or the problems that don't go well. That's your learning moment. You just got to get to the other side. So telling me the other side feels really good, Aaron. I think that's it. Oh. So this is a beautiful shot of our pontoon coming through the ship canal. 77 times we did that. I think that's great.
So now it's your turn. And again, you've been extremely patient, and so this is a chance to tell us what you'd like to know more about or some observations. And where is it Eli? There he is. He's got the mic. If you raise your hand, he'll come to you so we can all hear your questions or your comments. Something that you want to ask either of the speakers is right in front of you.
Okay, so on this paper right here, it says the 520 grand opening is the longest floating bridge in the world, but I've heard people saying it's the largest floating bridge in the U.S. Can we get a clarification on that?
Yes. Good point, Julie. Tell them what it really is.
The 520 floating structure today, the existing one, is the longest floating bridge in the world. And when we finish the new structure, it will be longer, and it will be the world's longest floating bridge. And on April 2nd, Guinness World Records will come out and give a plaque to the governor acknowledging that it is the longest floating bridge in the world. And actually, Washington State has 4 of the longest floating bridges in the world. So.
Great.
Well, it is. She was accurate. She just thought the pool was big enough.
What do you believe the most difficult part of building a bridge is, and how did you overcome that?
So one of the most difficult parts of building the 520 floating bridge really wasn't building it. It was getting consensus together on what we were going to do to address a mobility issue. So in the 90s, they put together a group of people, they called it TransLake, and they looked at mobility all around Lake Washington. They looked at light rail, they looked at tubes and tunnels across the lake, they looked at going around the lake and under the lake. So it was getting a large array of people with varying backgrounds to agree that we should go forward. So once they got agreement to go forward, and that was really through a lot of work with the neighborhoods and the community and with the legislators, which took a lot of engineering. Once we did that work, then it was made it possible for Governor Gregoire and the legislature to allocate money to 520. So when they do that, then the engineers, Suryata and Aaron, who actually worked with us to get to that point where they gave us enough funds to build, then the engineers actually have fun. That's the fun part for us. And then, of course, we had technical issues that we had to resolve, which, is also the fun part for us. So getting to the point where people agree to move forward, that's really challenging and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Good point to share. You hear it underlying about communications, and I think Julie brings it up time and time again. Think about all the different people you have to interact with, understand, and get consensus. Other questions?
So my name is Michael from Oakland High School, and I had a question about the 520 bridge. And how old was the bridge, and what would make it so different if there was a storm and the waves crashing over the bridge? What would make a difference?
So the new bridge. The new bridge. How much time?
So, what was it? What's the difference between the old bridge and the new bridge? Okay. So the old bridge, if you were to go just inside the pontoon, which is like an egg carton, sort of hollow with sections, if you could break into those, you would see the walls are about 8 inches, and there's rebar spacing, every 8 inches. It's not very robust, as you would say today. Anchor cables are smaller. Some of the wind wave connections, they're not as robust. When you do the new bridge, the walls are about 12 to 14 inch thick with Portland cement concrete. We've got rebar in there, reinforcing steel. You can barely squeeze the aggregate in the cement mixture between the reinforcing steel. The anchor cables are 3 1/4 to 3 1/2 inches big, so they're much larger than the old cables. And when we drive on today's 520 footing bridge, you're actually driving on the pontoon. You're driving on what we would say is the substructure or the foundation for the bridge. So today, on the new bridge, you're going to drive on a superstructure elevated over the pontoon. And we do that for 3 reasons. When you saw the photo where we had winds and waves crashing over, that's not safe for the drivers. So we elevated it, so if the wind does blow over, it blows over the pontoons and underneath where the drivers are. Second, when we maintain the structure, both of the floating structures on I-90 today, we need to close it off to allow the maintenance people to get into the pontoons, and they have to get in there every day. So we close off either a shoulder on I-90 or the whole lane or direction on 520. So that's not safe for drivers every time we do that, and it's not safe for our crews. So again, if you separate the roadway from the pontoon, you don't have to close it and interfere with either of those groups. And finally, we wanted to think about if we had light rail on 520 in the future. And light rail has an electrical current. And electrical currents and reinforcing steel don't go together very well. It corrodes. So that's one of those interdisciplinary activities that we took on. So if we put light rail on 520 and we put it on an elevated superstructure, we felt we could partition off that stray current from the foundation and protect it better. So those are why we did it differently now.
Thank you. Other questions?
Julie, can you comment a little bit on the health impact assessment? Sure.
I would love to. So I think it was in 2007, but you can tell me if I'm wrong. The legislature gave direction to the Department of Transportation to do a health impact assessment and work with King County Health and the Puget Sound Regional Air Quality Group at the time. And we took on groundbreaking work, and I'm lucky to work with Barbara Wright and Ngazi on a health impact assessment, which was to look at our transportation systems and how they actually affect the health of the local communities and how we can help make that better. We worked with the Centers of Disease Control, which was one of the, I can't tell you, you can't predict what you're going to work on a program like this. No one thinks you're going to work with the Centers of Disease Control in a transportation project. But he was great. He came out here later. He worked with our highway department. He worked with the local health departments here. It is groundbreaking work. It is the first ever health impact assessment done on a transportation project of this nature. And it gave advice to both the department and the legislature on how to incorporate health into the thinking of your design. And the recommendations, you can see they're incorporated into the project. Make it quieter. So noise is a problem with the neighborhoods adjacent to the road, so it was address noise. Connect the neighborhoods so that people can walk and use other modes of transportation. Build sidewalks. We have lids, we have bicycle paths, we have a way for people to go north-south on foot and bike and east-west. And they also talked a lot about air quality. And I'd like to say that the highway department, the Department of Transportation takes credit for making the air quality better. Actually, those designers of cars over the years have helped to make air quality better. But we actually looked at air quality as well. Water quality is also something that we look at, and it's very important here in Puget Sound into your drinking water, and so we looked at water quality and incorporated water quality treatment into our program too. A lot of that was recommendations from the health impact assessment that we worked on, and it was groundbreaking work and used across our department and across the country as an example of what to do. So it's great.
Good question, thank you. One over here. And your name and your school.
I'm Eric Wu from Owens Christian High School. And could you briefly explain the financial cost of different parts of construction of the bridge?
Okay. The 520 program was allocated by the legislature at $4.65 billion. So they capped what we could spend on the program. Early on, they allocated $2.9 billion to the program made up of federal dollars. We got bridge dollars from the federal government. We got highway dollars from the federal government. We also set a toll on 520. And working with the Transportation Commission, we actually worked through public policy with them on when to set the tolls. So the tolls were set on the existing 520 corridor because long-term, and a project like this is a long-term financial commitment. The sooner you pay off your Visa bill or your highway bill, the less expensive it is. So the tolls went on early in order to defray financing. So just big picture on the East Side Transit and HOV project. That project is, about $360 million. The floating bridge itself is about 1.3 billion. And the rest of the funds was to complete the EIS, to procure the right-of-way, those sorts of activities. And as we start moving into the Seattle side, we have that West Approach Bridge North project. That was funded through a TIFIA loan that we got from the U.S. Department of Transportation. That's about $200 million. And then you get to the rest of the West, to the Seattle side, which globally we estimate at $1.64 billion. So right now, the whole program is funded at $4.56 billion. And I will say, since some of you may not become engineers, we worked with the finance group, and we worked with the bond rating agencies, and we worked with a lot of the state treasurer on how we would finance that. So again, you got to be able to speak with and across your discipline.
Yes, other questions?
So what's your favorite part about being a civil engineer?
I think my favorite part is never knowing what each day is going to bring. There's always something different that goes along with every day. And another aspect that I love about being a civil engineer is the difference that we make in people's lives. No matter how small, no matter how big the project, obviously something like 520 is going to make a huge impact for not only locally, but for the entire region. I worked earlier on in the 520 program, I worked on some smaller noise wall projects, and those were things that affected just small communities of people. But to go out after those projects were done and to see the smiles on people's faces and to have people invite you into their backyard and say, now my kids can play in the backyard because it's not so loud, it's not deafening. They threw parties for us. They had cake, for us after we finished those projects. And that's where you realize that the work that we do is important, and it's important to make an impact on people's lives. And those are the things that I love. Another thing that I worked on actually while I was on the 520 program was the new connection between the new light rail station and the university, the Montlake Triangle project. And so this was the first time actually today that I had a chance to come across it. And it actually, it was very emotional for me to have an opportunity to know that I had a part in bringing that to bear and understanding the impact that that's gonna have on commuters using the light rail, bikers, walkers, everybody. It's really a cool experience.
Well said. No, I just want to add. So one thing that I'm a civil engineer, so I'm biased. So if you are basically transportation and infrastructure, so if you're in a building, you want to go somewhere on a highway or going across the bridge or even on a transit system, a civil engineer somewhere was involved in the design of it. So when I was looking at trying to choose my major also in engineering, I was trying to design electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, aeronautical engineering, civil engineering, and then I was thinking civil engineers. Basically everything that every day you wake up in a house, there was a civil engineer designing it. And then you go to work again on the highway, and then going somewhere in your office, a tall-rise building, civil engineer was designing it at some point. So.
That's good.
Thank you. Other questions?
Carol, thank you. I'd love to hear your input on, even if you don't do calculus anymore, why does what you learn matter?
I'll take that one.
That's good.
I, for one, do not use calculus ever. However, I think that one of the most important things that your math and science classes, both in high school and even when you get into college, because there's some stuff that I learned in college that I don't do anymore either. But what it's teaching you is it's teaching you problem solving, it's teaching you thinking skills. You're going to learn teamwork from those classes where you're working in teams and doing those group projects. So even though you're like, I am never going to use calculus ever again, I got to tell you, those problem solving skills that you have to use to get through calculus and to get through some of those math and science classes, I absolutely use every single day that I am on the job. And I wouldn't be where I am had I not had those classes and had to think through some of those big problems.
I have my name is Long Lee. I'm from Northwest Christian High School, and I think I have two questions. So, what math do you really apply to your job? Like, what math classes you take in college? And the second question is, how do you expand the bridge in the future?
I didn't get the second one.
Expand the bridge in the future.
Oh, how do you expand the bridge? Okay. You can ask, I'll do the expand, or you can do expand.
For the math, for our design engineers, even the folks that are involved in the design of it, we still have to apply some math to it. So all the calculations for the design of the alignment, for example, when you ask some of the students here, hopefully some of them in civil engineering, they could perhaps answer it in a more relatable way. But for highway alignment, a lot of calculations that is involved with that. Of course, most of it now we have computer software, but I could tell you that the best engineers, they still know how to do it manually, because when you do it with the computer software, you have to have a good feel about, is this the right answer? Sometimes the input may be wrong. If you do not know how to do it manually, you may not catch that it's not the right answer. And then the second part is how to expand the bridge in the future. The WSDOT has looked at that because Julie said, she mentioned about in the future, we are looking at, for example, if light rail is added to the bridge. In the future for the pontoons, Julie mentioned all those smaller, what we call supplemental pontoons on the side, the smaller ones. We have to add more of those to add buoyancy to the floating bridge, and then after that, then we could add to the superstructure of the bridge so that we could expand it. Then you could put the light rail on it, and the same thing on the fixed structures that we call the east approach. On the east approach, we add light rail in the future. We could do widening by adding a foundation and superstructure on it.
We've got 3 more minutes. So got a couple questions. Yeah.
When you graduated from college, why didn't you go back to Indonesia instead of staying here in Seattle?
So what I didn't tell you was I already have a couple older siblings here. I failed to mention that my older sister is also a civil engineer, so that actually played an influence on how I chose my major and what the choices that I made. So it's just the situation that the family's already here.
So my name is Alma, Cleveland High School, and my question is, how do the incomes compare for engineers working on public versus private projects? And can you guys
Income, is that what you said?
Yeah. Oh, that's a hard one.
See.
Well, I'll answer this one, because I work for the Washington State Department of Transportation, and I will say that if you were just to look at the income, so the check that you get, you probably don't make as much through your career working for the public sector. But you have to look at lifestyle, and I am here today, and I have been here in Seattle for a decade. If you work for a consulting firm, like Erin does here, she was here in Seattle, and now she is in Arizona, and she may be somewhere else next year. Now, they will pay her and compensate her for that, but she will move her family, and she will move on. So it's all about the lifestyle you want and the predictability that you are looking for. So the other thing is people say, well, government, you won't get laid off. 2 layoffs we've had here at the Department of Transportation, depending on the cycle of funding. So again, it's kind of what you want out of your life, and you get a different expectation of what your life is going to be like working for the government versus working for a private company.
And I'll throw out one thought. You also have the option of owning your own small business and then working for yourself as a consultant too, as we are in our company. And it has all the insecurity of not knowing always how much you're going to bring in, but you do have options on who and how you want to work. So you do have public sector, private sector, and in the private sector you can work for someone or have your own business and do a joint venture with other businesses to provide services to companies like HDR Engineering or to agencies like Washington State Department of Transportation. Wouldn't be bad to be an engineer major and a business minor, so you really know where it's at and the options. Many great engineers have come and talked to some of us about, now how do you run this operation? So it's a great use of all your skills and communications. So can you imagine one of the things you like to do when you're in a project, be on time and under budget? We had an outstanding governor come talk to us, integrated into our program, and we're still on time. So we are ready to thank our panel. Thank you so much.